Welcome to Powerless to Powerful with Angela Bennett, a show that brings a sassy mix of transformative advice on health, relationships, love, career, and mindset shifting, together with some fun and laughter. Powerless to Powerful with Angela Bennett begins now. Welcome to Powerless to Powerful with Dr. Angela Bennett. I am so excited to have my guest, Jason Dennen, with me today. I will just run through who he is. Jason Dennen is a Christian author, inspirational speaker, skydiver, mountain climber, triathlete, and explorer. He was born and raised on the east coast of the United States and moved to Colorado to explore the wide open spaces in the western United States and test his limits. He survived a skydiving accident that nearly ended his life. The long recovery allowed him to reassess his life and discover his purpose in life of helping others through their most difficult times in life. Jason, welcome to Powerless to Powerful. It is such an honor to have you here on our show.
The honor is all mine. Thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey? I mean, I've given a little bit of a rundown. I'm just listening to this, reading this, and you've survived a skydiving accident. I mean, I've done skydiving twice. I'll never do it again. I'm done. I have reached my limit, but I just can't imagine what that must have been. Free falling, contemplating or expecting, am I about to die? Tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So I was an experienced skydiver, had a couple hundred jumps under my belt. And it's just a routine Saturday. It was the third jump of the day. I deployed my parachute. I was coming in for a landing. I was about 150 feet off the ground. And suddenly a huge wind. So we're right next to the mountains. So sometimes we have some odd winds or unexpected winds. The wind came from behind, right off the mountains, picked me up and slammed me forward violently. So I got picked up in my harness and just pushed forward. And I was about 5 seconds from landing at 150 feet. And at that point, you really have, I guess, two options. Now, with a parachute to turn, the way it turns is you pull down on one side, a handle, and that collapses a part of the parachute. And then your parachute dives towards the ground, and the collapsed portion allows you to turn. Now, if you're 1,000 feet off the ground and you do a turn, you might lose 200 feet of altitude or 150 feet. And you're fine. Now, when you're 150 feet off the ground and you try to turn, if you do that, you would dive directly into the ground and you probably wouldn't survive. So at that point, you got hit and I'm making a split-second decision. I'm just like, if I turn, I'm probably going to go straight into the ground and die. I have to do nothing. So ahead of me was some grass, and then ahead of that was a cattle fence and then an airplane hangar. And I thought to myself, well, with the increased speed from the wind that hit me from behind, I have no idea whether I'm going to land before that fence or not. Oh. So I took a deep breath and just said, hey, just relax. There's nothing you can do. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So you kind of counted down those 5 seconds, 4, 3, and then it was like, with 2 seconds, I was like, maybe there's a chance I could land before the fence and on the grass and nothing's going to happen. And then with 1 second, I was just like, I am moving way too fast. I'm going through this fence. So I hit the fence. The fence had, 3 wires. It came really tight around my chest and my abdomen. Pretty much as soon as I hit it so hard, it just snapped. And then 10 feet behind that was the airplane hangar. So I hit it going, guesstimating 30 miles an hour head on. And then I blacked out from the impact. They called 911, rushed over to me, called 911. I was airlifted via helicopter to the nearest level 1 trauma center, which just means the worst of the worst kind of accidents. They send them there. And so it's 50 miles away. They rushed me there. And I hit so hard on the left side of my body, 10 of my 12 ribs broke. And the impact was so hard to the ribs, they then impacted my heart. And my heart exploded out of where it normally sits, called the pericardial sac, and ended up on the right side of my chest, all twisted up. So I landed at the hospital. I'm blacked out. I came to a few times during the journey. I remember rotor blades. and the immediate life-saving surgery. The doctors would later tell my family they had never performed that surgery on anyone in that hospital before because no one had ever made it in alive with that injury that I had called a pericardial tear. So then I spent 8 days in a coma, 3.5 months in the hospital, 10 of those weeks I couldn't move at all, except this was like the maximum I could move, just to pick up my food and put it in my mouth. Had to relearn to walk. And then the doctor, when I asked them, well, when do you think I could run again? And I asked them that the first time I was able, or they gave me the ability to try and walk. And the doctor's like, well, I don't think you're ever going to run again. So I kind of put that in the back of my head and said, all right, we'll see about that. And so months go on. I continue to rehab, and then I decided to sign up for a triathlon to test, whether my arms, my legs, my heart worked. It was a test to me that I was like, I need to shoot for something. So I signed up for a triathlon, and then I finished it a day short of the 1 year anniversary of the crash. So that's kind of the high level story. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the crazy story that happened.
So, out of curiosity, how old were you when this happened?
42. I turned 43 in the hospital. So it was June 23rd, 2018 was the accident. So we're almost coming up on the 5-year anniversary.
So, I mean, so you completed the triathlon?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have all of your function back in your body, or most of, or?
Yeah, I'd say it's always like if you drop a glass vase, and then glue it back together, that's what it's kind of like. It doesn't fit back together exactly like it was before, but I'm very lucky. I was lucky to avoid any brain injury or spinal injury. I had 20 broken bones. They had to fix 5 organs, but with all that happened, I was extremely lucky that most of it was fixable. So is everything perfect? You know what? No, but am I going to complain? No, because it works pretty good, and they did a pretty good job putting me back together. So I was I was incredibly lucky that that a lot of it was something they could fix versus something was not fixable.
That is just a remarkable story. I love it when you mentioned the broken vase and putting it back together, because there's a beautiful Japanese tradition called kintsugi, and it's about like a porcelain vase or a bowl or something like that. And when they break, a lot of, like, Westerners generally, we throw it in the bin, but the Japanese, they put it back together with precious metals, so gold or silver or something like that. And that actually, those broken pieces and the welded parts that they've brought back together, actually magnifies its beauty and its worth. And I like, when you said that, that's where my mind went, because it's such a beautiful analogy of not only physically but mentally, those pieces that are brought back together when there's emotional, mental, physical stuff that's broken or torn apart or whatever, and we just bring it back together, and it just magnifies our worth and our value and our beauty. And because our scars make us who we are, right? There's so much strength and foundation that's created out of those, and character that's created out of those rough moments in our life.
Sure. Yeah, some of the scars remind you of things you needed to be reminded of. As far every day I wake up and see that I have a scar that goes from my clavicle all the way to my belt line, where they opened me up and are fixing my heart. And every morning I wake up and I get dressed and I look at that, and it reminds me, like, stay on track with what I'm doing, what's important in life, that I questioned and was lacking before the accident. So that's the imperfections, or maybe they're not imperfections, or the beauty, really, sometimes. So.
And that's an interesting point, actually. What was your life like before this happened? So what did that impact have on your life? So, one day everything's fine and normal, normal, whatever that is. And, you're just going along with life. And then all of a sudden your life is almost, well, it would have flashed before your eyes, no doubt. And then your life is changed forever. And you have that permanent reminder. What is the difference between your life then and your life now? What's the impact that it's had?
Sure. Well, coming up to the skydiving accident, a few years earlier, I had taken a new job, and little did I know it was going to turn into so many hours, and I really had to do everything I could just to get through kind of to the next day, because we're 12 to 14 hours a day, and unknowingly I changed my life in not a positive way, and I kind of lost focus in terms of spending time with loved ones or friends, and I had a long list of things I wanted to accomplish, outside of work, such as like volunteer at a hospital and things like that. And I never got to any of it during that time period because I was working so many hours, and I wasn't really happy. Not really happy. I was terribly unhappy. And skydiving, in some ways, was an escape from that, and maybe instead of confronting it, where in skydiving you're completely in the moment. So when you're at the airport, let's say on a Saturday, it's an amazing feeling to be in the moment. But really, you're also, if you're telling yourself the truth, it's avoidance is what you're practicing. Because I wasn't really trying to fix, or I wasn't doing a good enough job trying to fix what was going wrong in my life and working too many hours and not spending the time with loved ones. And I was kind of like, well, how do I figure this out? I know I'm going down a wrong path that I don't want to go down, but growing up, you're taught like work really hard and be responsible for everything you're doing. And it's kind of, that's true, but I had to be in such an obsessive place to get to that success in a career that it led me down a wrong path. So the skydive, amazingly, kind of was a break from that I couldn't figure out myself. So I was laying after I wake up from the coma, I'm laying in the bed for about 10 weeks and really can't move. So the blessing of that was it took away all of my defense mechanisms. Like I couldn't go and, if I was stressed before, I'd go and run and get an endorphin high, or I'd jump out of a plane a couple times and not have to think about, how miserable my life had become. And me laying there made me confront that. And it wasn't easy. It was a horrible time, really, but it was absolutely needed because it took away all of the distractions you deal with in everyday life. All there was at that point was survival and thinking about how am I going to change my life. I had a second chance and I'm super lucky. You can't go back to how you were before. It's like, this is a message to you. Like, you got a second chance. You got a break. Figure it out and change your life. It's like, I was weary and burdened, and I got rest, and that's what I needed to really just be able to reassess my life. And that was an incredibly difficult time, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because that allowed me to think about, what changes do I have to make? What am I really on this earth to do? Because it couldn't have been just working, because that was certainly not enough. I had an empty feeling about that for sure. So yeah, it was an incredibly difficult time, but I needed it.
Gosh, thank you for sharing that. And it's where I saw this meme once about this person who was running, and this other woman's yelling out, "What are you running from? Are you okay? It's 7:00 in the morning. What are you running from?" And then she takes a swig of her glass of wine. But it's like, when so often we have things like that, a vice, really. So running, the skydiving, for me it was alcohol and cocaine, to escape our realities and the things that are causing us so much discomfort and so much pain. And it's really interesting when you have those moments where you cannot escape, like you had in bed for 10 weeks by yourself, nowhere to go, no option but to face the stuff that is revealed and that comes up. These are really challenging moments. For me, last year, I started rehab. It's now 240 days or something like that. But it was a year of it was like layers that just peel back because more and more stuff was being revealed. And the two words that I used to describe it was brutal and beautiful. And maybe you can relate to it. I don't know, because there is no escape. You have to face all the things that we've pushed down so far to cope and make it through each day with working and whatever else we need to get through. So what I guess my curiosity is, tell us a little bit about that, because there's a lot of people who are running from things they've suppressed, and there's vices that they're using to compensate the pain. And I guess what I want to know is like what the difference between the freedom and the liberty of having had to deal with or being honest with what you were feeling and experiencing back then compared to what it's like now, living in more freedom of things that you love and things that you do to bring life and satisfaction and happiness and health to your body and to the world. I mean, you've written a book, you're here with me sharing your story. So there's an impact that's happening. What is it like for you compared to what it was like?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say, well, the big difference is purpose.
Wow.
I felt like I had lost purpose in everyday life because I was like, well, I'm working, and in the end of the day, that you have to work, but then there needs to be more than that. One of the things, the list of things I wanted to accomplish that I never got to accomplish, I say, well, I want to volunteer at a hospital and help people. I wasn't sure how to do that, and I was so busy I never got to do that. And so when you wake up and you have all these regrets from that coma and say, I didn't do this well, I was not great in relationships, and like all these things. I never thought of the good things that I'd done. I thought of all the negative things I'd done that I needed to get better at. And one of the wonderful part of the whole crash was that I got a purpose back. And it was a purpose I couldn't have had before the accident, because one of the things I realized was the story of the crash is a gift that was given to me, because I can connect to people in a way that I would have never been able to connect with them before. Because when I was in the hospital and the nurses and other personnel would come in, and every time it was someone new, they would keep asking me the story about the crash. So at first, I probably told it 50 times. At first, I thought they were just checking my brain to see if it worked. And after a while, I said, well, this is like the 50th time I've told it. It's probably not that. And then I started thinking about, well, what did the other person do when I started telling them the story? And when I opened up and told them what happened to me, it allowed them to open up with whatever they were going through in life and struggling with. And I said, whoa, I was, what seemed like almost like it started to be a burden, because every time I told the story, I kind of got PTSD from telling it, because I was like, it only happened like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, or, whatever it was at that point. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm not telling this story for me. I'm telling this story for the other person, because I was like, if all I have to do is tell this story and they open up about whatever's going through their life, I was like, wow, maybe there's more to this. And I said, well, maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing with this whole, because I knew when I crashed, I was like, this isn't a coincidence. There's a reason. I'd been praying to be like, God, give me purpose and show me the way. And
Wow.
I wasn't sure the way was going to be into the side of a building, because maybe I wouldn't have jumped the third time that day. But God works in mysterious ways, and it was part of his plan that maybe I had to go through the toughest thing in my own life and recover before I could ever help someone else going through the toughest part of their life. Because I even before, I was like, well, I'm going to volunteer at a hospital. I was like, well, what do I have to offer? I couldn't figure that out. But now I was like, oh, maybe I have something to offer because of what just happened. So I was like, wow, maybe that's the whole purpose behind everything that happened in this skydiving. I never thought it was a coincidence. It happened for a reason. I was like, all right. Then you kind of start discovering your purpose. And what happens is, no matter what's going on in your life, it's a lot easier to wake up every day when you have a purpose behind you, because it's not just about you. how you're feeling today. It's about someone else and what you can help someone else with. So I would say I wake up much happier now. I might do, you know, I don't call what helping other people work, but I might spend more hours doing work and that on the side, but I never think of it as work, and I never go, oh, because it energizes you in terms of going, I'm carrying out some sort of purpose that I didn't have before, and that's amazing. And when you connect to people in a way and that you couldn't have connected with before, and you see that it helps them get through their life maybe a little bit easier, you're just like, wow. And all I had to do was tell them that story, and then it opened everything up. So, I mean, everything changed. Life is completely different.
Wow. It's amazing when we're vulnerable with our story and with our truth, how that does open, it gives permission for other people to be vulnerable. It almost makes us a safe place, as though we understand what it's like to go through stuff. And it's not just the impact of your accident, which was horrific, and you're fortunate to have survived it, but it's all the emotional stuff that comes with the healing and being alone in your room, with your thoughts, as well as all of that. So the emotional side as well as the physical side. Just amazing. So did you go back to your old job?
I did. They were nice enough to pay all the medical bills that I incurred during that time.
Well, that's a blessing.
Yeah, a couple $1 million.
Shivers.
Here's what I'll tell you what I learned. Taking ownership and figuring it out yourself on how you're going to make an impact. I felt like before the accident, I was so overwhelmed by stress and everything that went along with it. The accident put everything into perspective in terms of what's important in life. So, yeah, the time the time to look for a new job was not coming off disability and barely be able to walk and trying to find a new job. It was going, you could find another job, but it might be the same thing. The reality is there's going to be things that come at you that you don't have any control over. And you have to figure out a way to overcome everything you're going through and all that's getting thrown at you at work, and still accomplishing what you need to accomplish, your true purpose in life, or what I defined as my true purpose in life outside of that. So I think putting things into perspective, being better at stress management, because you're just like, it could be worse. You could hit a building, in a skydiving accident. I mean, it's finding a way. No one's going to say, oh, we feel sorry if you got in a skydiving accident. We're not going to pile extra work on you or whatever. It's like, you have to figure that out yourself to make sure that you are accomplishing your purpose, even with everything else is going on, because you're going to, no matter what job or what you have, things are going to get thrown at you that you can't control, and you're going to have to overcome. I like I said to somebody when I came home from the hospital, they said, well, everything's going to be easy from now on for you, right? I said, well, no one just gave me a winning lottery ticket and I don't have to ever work again or do anything else. It's like, at the time I was like, I'm 43. I still have to go back to work. I still have to make a living. I still have to live the rest of my life. No, I said, this trial just prepares me for the next trial I'm going to go through. So, it doesn't mean everything is going to be wonderful and easy for the rest of my life now, just because, I went through one trial. It's like, it's it's taking control.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Get the massive trial out of the way, and then life's, smooth sailing for the rest of our life. That'd be nice.
Crossed it off the list, did that. Now it's just like easy street the rest of the way. But
I love it.
No, it's taking control, and it's the same thing I did when I was in rehabilitation, when I was struggling. I was just like, I have to take control and figure things out. No one's going to figure it out for me, in terms of taking responsibility and going forward. So yeah, it was taking control and figuring it out. I'm responsible, putting the weight on my own shoulders of, it's for me to figure out, not for anybody else.
Yeah. So have you gone skydiving again?
I have not. My family begged me. I didn't even get out of the hospital. I was still laying in the hospital, still not able to move yet. And they already started begging me, like, please do not skydive anymore. Can you please not make that your mission to come back and skydive? So, I did triathlon instead. But
Yeah.
because I figured that proved my body worked. But I had a tremendous amount of guilt that I dealt with, especially in that 10-week period when I couldn't move, where um, you're laying there and you're like, I'm here because of I made the choice to jump out of an airplane, but my family didn't make the choice of jumping out of the airplane. I made the choice. Now you can blame it on the wind or whatever the case may be, but the reality is, if I didn't jump out, I wouldn't have gotten hurt like that. And I couldn't imagine what it must have felt like for my family to get that call and say, you know, he may not survive. You better get out here right now, because my parents and my extended family live on the East Coast. Um, so they had, they dropped everything, flew out right away. Or it must, what it was like for my parents to tell my siblings that, what my condition was like, or when my family walked into the ICU for the first time, intensive care, and see me laying there in a coma, completely broken. And, the feeling that when you wake up and you're like, I can't believe I put them through this.
Mm.
And, I had to overcome that to come back, and overcome it meaning they never blame me. They didn't say, "Oh, you shouldn't have jumped out of the airplane." They're like, "We get it. It's an accident. It happens." But I can't take back what that must have felt like and how horrific that must have been for them to deal with that, because they're not in control. They're coming in and seeing how horrible I look, and is he going to survive? Is he not going to survive? And that's tough to deal with.
Yeah, that is really tough to deal with, and they would have had a certain amount of PTSD from that as well, no doubt.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, wow. So, what is one piece of advice that you would give our listeners on how they can empower their own journey of working through their stuff and finding their purpose, having those honest conversations and transition phases in life that we all go through to grow through?
Yeah. Well, I think first that, in terms of, you have to get rid of the noise. And what I mean by that was, I was so lucky when I was laying in that bed for 10 weeks, life became simple, right? It was survival, and I was thinking about how I wanted to change my life. There's not a lot of other things going on, and I wasn't getting tugged by all these things. And in today's society, there's so many directions we continually get pulled in, that I think having quiet time that you put aside to block everything out, and just thinking about, what changes you want to make, is really important. Because going for a walk or something like that is just to get away from all those distractions. Because you could use distractions just to put off making decisions or not thinking about things fully through. And I think in terms of change, it's taking ownership on the change. You're responsible for the change, and don't think you're going to all of a sudden change everything in 1 hour, 1 minute, or whatever. It's a gradual change over time. Um, and it's almost building habits, and you continue to build habits, and that's what will get you there. And just one example to share this as far as recovery. So I was laying there and I was going through all this guilt, and I was feeling helpless a lot, because they would come in and they moved my arm. So my left arm was in a cast from wrist to shoulder, and they had to move it while it was in the cast. And the therapist would move it about an inch. I couldn't even move it myself. And I was on the verge of passing out when they would do it. It's called vasovagal response. Your body's just like, don't move this, but you'll never recover unless you break through that. And so I'm laying there, and I'm just, and you're thinking at night, you're like, I can't even move my arm an inch, and they're moving it for me without almost passing out. I was like, well, how am I going to get through the rest of this? And I was putting so much pressure on myself to think that and maybe it was whatever chemicals they had in my body at that point, to think I was going to recover in a day or a week or whatever. I was putting all this pressure, like, I need to recover now. It was like, that wasn't even possible. Then I finally gave myself permission to say, you're not going to get, you're not going to get better in a day. You're not going to get better a week. It's going to be months, if not more. And it was like, I gave myself permission only to be responsible for making like this big of an improvement every day. And I was like, I could do that, 0.001% improvement. I could figure out, even though I can't move in bed, even though I could only move my arm like this, I'm like, I could figure out something to improve every day. And from then on, I was just looking for these minimal improvements every day. And I knew that was going to compound over time. But all I had to do was that small improvement. If you try to think of, getting through, changing in one day, it's like you're going to give up because you're like, well, that's not possible. So find little chunks that you could do each day. And then all of a sudden, 30 days later, 60 days later, you're so much further than you would have been because all you were worrying about was just that small improvement every day.
That's so good. It just reminds me of the caterpillar when it goes into the cocoon through the metamorphosis stage and comes out into the butterfly. It does not happen overnight. There is a process that has to unwind and unfold, and it takes time for that to happen. And it's the same. I love that you told that story, because we do put so much pressure on ourselves to be, we have a vision of something and we want to be there, and we want that house and we want that car and we want to serve people and we want to do this and we want to do it all now. And it's like, these things take time. Physical healing takes time. Character development takes time. Your goal that you're working on takes time. Writing a book takes time. I mean, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, they didn't wake up, Jim Cathcart, they didn't wake up being these phenomenal, world-renowned speakers. They work on these things for decades behind the scenes, yet we see these finished products that they present to us. And, where we've become this microwave society that just wants everything yesterday. And it's absurd. And we, in those moments, we miss being present. We miss what's going on in the present space. And I know, so thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important. Putting pressure on ourselves. And those moments of rest, I think they're such a God-given time, because often, I don't know about you and your walk with God, and I want to know how this impacted your walk with God, your journey with him. Like there's a lot of blame on God for why did this happen. But I know with me, often God's calling us to set aside time with him and we don't do it. But then something will happen that will make us, it just leaves us no other option, whether that's, we have to go through a health healing journey like you've gone through. Me, it was recovery from alcohol and drugs. So there's like, when you don't listen, when you don't pay attention to those callings of rest and coming away with him and just taking the time for the growth, something will happen to make you take that space and that time. So I'm curious what that was like for you, and really what your journey was with God, I guess, before this and also during, and then now afterwards, because it's so easy to blame God and go, oh, this, you could have saved me from this. I mean, you could have lost your life. It's a blessing that you're still here. Yeah, what about that?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the church. I grew up a Christian. So it was always part of my life. And I would say I went to church less when I moved out to Colorado, but I didn't ever lose religion. I prayed every day, and I would say I worshipped in my own way, I suppose, not necessarily in a church. So in terms of the accident, so I had faith before that. I had, that wasn't something I lacked. I never blamed God for for the accident, I thanked God that it happened, because it was supposed to happen. And I was praying. I said, God, I don't know how to change what I'm doing. I know you have more plans for me than I'm doing. I need you to lead me the way, because I can't figure this out. And
I love
and then whack, I hit the side of the building, and I was just like, he was probably, God was probably communicating with me the whole time, but I had too many things going on that for me to listen. And then I was just like, all right, I'm listening now. I'm laying in the bed, and I was just like, this must be part of the plan, because there's no way I should have survived that. Not me saying that. All the medical professionals that say there's no way you should have lived through this. So there must be a reason behind it. And so I never questioned. I was just like, yeah, this. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but I believe from the beginning, even waking up from the coma, I was like, oh, this is for a reason. And so one of the first things I did when I was kind of coherent, I suppose, after waking up from the coma, was just like, I prayed, and I said, thank you, God, for watching out for me from this whole accident and helping me through that coma. And please give me strength to continue to survive through this day and through this night, because it was just minute by minute at that point when you're first waking up. So I kind of defaulted to what I knew how to do, because I prayed every day before that. I used to pray before I jumped out of the airplane. People would always ask, I would close my eyes a couple minutes before we got to the final altitude when we're about to jump. They're like, why do you always close your eyes before? I was like, I'm praying. You're like, every time? I'm like, absolutely. Why wouldn't I? And so, like I say, well, people could say, well, God wasn't watching out for you because you crashed in the building. I was like, no, he watched out for me because I survived crashing through the building.
That's right.
I would say that God put people in my life to teach me all the lessons I needed to know how to survive before I ever needed to survive. So when I was going through this, and a lot of times, you're on so much medication in the early stages that you didn't even know why you were doing things, but there were months later, I would think back and go, oh, I did that because I knew how to do it. My body just defaulted into what it knew how to do. It's like the foundation was built before it was ever needed, and the foundation is all those lessons you needed to learn. So when I was lost along the way, something would come from my past, and then, wow, now I know what to do. So I wouldn't have survived without it. I wouldn't have had direction without it. And I was given a purpose, and there was a reason why I went through it. And I thank, it was like, what I would say is that it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I would be where at now unless I went through this. So every day I'm like, thank you that this happened.
Isn't that amazing that our greatest tragedies we're just so thankful for? People, we must sound crazy to some people. Not that I care about that, but that just makes me laugh.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, so about a week ago, so a friend that played football with me in high school, and I hadn't talked to him in, I guess I graduated in high school in 1994. And so I played football with him, and we weren't super close or anything. And so he just went through, he fell 3 stories. He was on a construction project and almost died. I didn't know any of this because we hadn't spoken since we played football together, however many years ago that was. I'm not going to do the math in my head, but a long time ago. And the interesting thing, what you had just said was, other people don't understand. So we wound up just connecting through social media after all these years. And I saw on his social media that he had just been baptized because he found God again after falling these 3 stories through there that he shouldn't have survived. And I happened just to connect with him and saw this. I said, wow. And I would say that's coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences. It happened for a reason that we got together. And I saw his post and his video of him being baptized. And I said, wow. And I reached out to him and I said, there's not a lot of people that can probably understand what you're going through now and the thoughts you have in that survival situation. I said, I've gone through it, and please reach out to me if you're ever come across any feelings or people can't understand what you're going through because they haven't been through the same life altering, situation that you have. Because when I was going through it, I didn't know anybody else who almost, died. So it's weird because you could try to explain things, but if someone hasn't gone through it, there's things you can try to explain, but uh, it's almost impossible to explain it. And it was amazing because I connected with him, and just happened that at that right time, because I was just like, well, I didn't have someone during that situation, but I could be that person for him if he ever needs to talk to somebody that's gone through a life altering situation. And it was amazing timing. And I was like, wow, that was, yeah, it was just a week ago that happened, we just happened to connect. And it was, yeah, it was amazing timing. But like I said, no coincidence. There was a reason that we wound up connecting. God had us in mind to see our journeys and see what he was doing and what I was doing and connect. So that was a wonderful feeling when I saw that come up and see his baptism.
Oh, praise God. What a beautiful story. So what is there something that you would leave our listeners with today, Jason, just to wrap up?
I would say what saved me was, having a strong foundation in place. It's like I had knowingly been training for this day of this accident for my entire life without knowing I was doing it. So, if you're not happy with your current path, like I said, find things that you feel like you're not doing, and just little by little find a way to do something every day to build yourself into something you want to be. It's not going to come all at once. It shouldn't. But over time, if you are willing to put in the time and find things that you want to do to improve yourself and build that foundation, once that foundation is there, it's there to get you through the difficult times you may live through in the future. So, yeah.
That is so good. That reminds me of the bamboo plant. I don't know if you know this, but you have to water this bamboo plant every single day for 5 years before it even sprouts through the ground. But then within it's like 6 weeks or 90 days or something, it shoots up and it just grows to one of the tallest trees. And it's just that constant watering and nurturing, like in preparation of what's to come. So thank you for sharing what you just did. I love that. That's great. Where can people find you? Where can they purchase your book if that's of interest to them? Because I know I need a copy.
Sure. Amazon.com is the best way to get the copy if you're in Australia. And it'll save you on shipping and things like that. So that's the best way to get it. Instagram, I'm at JWD Boulder, and Boulder spelled BOULDR, like the town Boulder, Colorado. So you can find me there. You can find me on Facebook. Just search by name, and you'll see a big triathlon picture. There's a couple Jason Dennens, but I'm the one with the triathlon picture at the top. So that's the best way to connect with me.
So just quickly, Jason, what's the title of your book? How did you come up with that? 8 Days Till Sunrise.
Sure. So 8 Days Till Sunrise talks about that. So I was in the coma for 8 days. Okay. So I didn't see the sun for 8 days. Essentially, the morning of the accident, I went for a trail run. I see this beautiful sunrise against the mountains. The mountains are glowing. And then I go through the accident, and it was 8 days until the coma was a real dark place. And there was never sunlight. There was nothing. And then when I woke up from the coma, my eyes opened and sun was coming through my hospital window so high that I couldn't open my eyes completely after being dark for 8 days. And then slowly I was able to open my eyes and was startled by a doctor who was looking down at me. And the first thing he said to me was, he said, "You're lucky to be alive." And then I kind of gave him a little high five. So yeah, the 8 days of sunrise is all about the 8 days of darkness in the coma before the sun rose again when I first opened my eyes after those 8 days.
Wow. That's really powerful. I love that. Thank you. I'm glad I asked. Jason, and it's been such an honor and a privilege to hear your story and get to know you better. And I just look forward to who is going to hear this and reach out to you, and, just the impact that your story is going to have on lives. When this story hits your ears and lands in your heart, make sure you reach out to Jason and myself. I want to know too. Let me know how this landed for you, and how this helps you transition through whatever you're going through, and what doors it opens for you, because that's the whole purpose of this Powerless to Powerful podcast. It's sharing our journeys of hardships and trials, and how we've triumphed over them and become victorious, and living lives that now we get to share our stories and impact the lives of others, to bring motivation and encouragement and inspiration and love to the rest of the world, to all of those who are listening to our stories. So please reach out to Jason or myself. We'd love to hear your stories, and thank you for listening in today. It's been an honour to be here from Down Under in Sydney, Australia, with you, Jason, in Colorado.
Boulder, Colorado. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for letting me talk about what happened and spread the message of hope. And without you, I wouldn't be able to connect to people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The honour is all mine. Follow Angela on Facebook and LinkedIn at Angela Bennett, on Instagram at AngieB_transformations, or visit angieb.com.au. And remember, your past does not define you, it refines you.